Says we're live. Hopefully in a minute. Yeah, we should be good. We should be going. Yay! Oh, God. Need to mute myself. Hi. What's up, everyone? Yes. Okay, so let me... let me figure out. What do I want to do here? What do I want to do? Welcome. New people. Hello, new people. Hello, Marlon. Yes. Hello, Massa Moose. Moose? Mouse. Moose like chocolate mousse. That would be great. That's also a good name. Massa Moose. Teddy Tiger. Sean? Cheyenne? Murphy. Username. We love it. Raphael. Gladius. Mohammed. Welcome. Welcome, Caspian. Welcome, Abby. Welcome, Phoenix. How are you? I am good. I'm trying to find... I can't decide if I'm hot or if I'm cold. It's like that temperature outside. It's like, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it warm? I don't know what's going on here. I think I want to get a blanket. From my blanket pile in the other side of my house. Okay. Hi, Bandit. I know I'm moving stuff. What am I doing? Okay, there we go. I think this is gonna be better. I wanted to braid my hair earlier today, and then I ran out of time, so I didn't. Yay! I cannot braid it on stream. That would be... I am not good at braiding normally. Let me pop out the chat here. Let me do that. Yeah, there we go. Yes, the pain, love, and dessert. That is what Massa Moose is. I can't... It was reminding me of another word, and I can't remember, like, mass. There's some word that it reminds me of, and I don't know. I'm probably just making something up. Always catch these streams at 3 a.m. when I'm exhausted. Well, hey, you know, get your questions out there. Get them while you can, and I'll answer them, and you can play it back later. Is this about BDSM? It is. How long is your hair? It is this long. However, like, I guess it's past, like, here-ish. It's like past boob length. Is that a measurement of hair length? How are you and Bandit doing? Bandit is doing great. She is resting her chin on her bed like this. She's like browsing the window. Browsing what the universe has to offer a small dog. Roommate has a new puppy that is a squeaky toy incarnate, and me and the cat both need patience. All best of luck. Puppies are fun, kittens are fun, but they do require a bit of energy. Is that a Star Trek shirt? Gee, I don't know. Is it? It is indeed. It is indeed. Ooh, I had my first scene last week. I'm gonna have another this weekend. So fun. Congrats. Okay. So before we get into answering questions, first of all, everybody, welcome to the live stream. So typically we got to cover some ground rules. I'm actually going to pop over and like put my last video on the screen here. So when we get to that, I can do stuff with that. So just some really basic things before we get into it. First of all, this live stream is 18 plus only. As you see down there, there are rules and an FAQ that you can also read down below in the description box, because they're just for a variety of reasons. I'm not an expert about everything, so some things I'm not going to be able to answer questions about because I don't know. I am not a trained mental health or medical health professional. So if you have questions about what should I do with this rash, or help, what do I do? I have a dom that has schizophrenia. I'm not going to be able to answer those questions, but I will have resources down below that you can check out to help you with those things. In general, just basic ground rules. Again, don't give mental health advice. I don't give medical advice. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not any of those things. Those are really the big ones. 18 plus only. Otherwise, if it's in the FAQ, I may not answer it. So read that because it has links to relevant materials. So if your question is like, how can I find my local BDSM community? How can I tell my girlfriend I want to tie her up? I have answered those before numerous times. So there are just some general things we talk about a lot. Resources will be down below. Otherwise, feel free to chat about and ask me questions about whatever you want. And that's about the long and the short of it. Sometimes this is themed. I had a couple of ideas for things that we could discuss today that I obviously put in the title. So I thought I could talk a little bit about BDSM conventions because I've been to 2 very recently that were online, that were virtual. And I also wanted to answer some questions and just talk a little bit more about the video that I did on how to spot a fake submissive, because I got some questions in there and there's some things that I just want to clarify from the video that I thought people were going to bring up in comments like for sure, and then nobody has. So maybe it's just me, but even if it is just me, I thought I would get it out there and we could talk about it in case that question or questions ever come up in the future. What do you think? Another big thing. I answer questions in the order that they are received. So ask your questions early. I will try to get to it as soon as I can. So please do not spam the chat with like the same question 4 or 5 times, because I'm not going to see the 5th time before I see the first time. And I do give people like a 10-15 minute warning at the end to just ask any questions in case I do miss something or I need clarification on something or anything else. Also, if you want to make sure to have your question answered, the only way to do that to like make sure I answer, because sometimes I just skip around stuff because I've answered it a bunch. If you want to make sure I answer your question, that is what super chats are for. You can do a super chat here on YouTube. If you want to save 30% of your money, you can also go to Streamlabs, which is linked below, and that contributes to our goal, which is currently getting a second camera so we can have a little Bandit camera so y'all can see Bandit when she's being cute when I'm streaming, because she pretty much, this time of the day, she likes to hang out in her bed and watch outside the window and look at things, and it's very cute. So you guys are missing out on a lot. With all that being said, though, I will answer some questions. So, what do you think of switches in the BDSM lifestyle? This is interesting. Like, are there people that like think switches are a problem? Are there people that think switches like aren't real? What's going on? There's history behind that question and I don't know what it is. I think that switches are perfectly reasonable. I would say I know a lot of switches. I do not personally identify as a switch, so I am not one, and I don't think I've had play partners that are like casual play partners that are switches, but none of my committed relationships have been with switches because I am not a switch. But they're fine. The switches are great. Love them. Doing God's work. Switches are fine. They're totally valid. If somebody's telling you for some reason that switches aren't valid, I don't know where they got that idea from, because switches have been around pretty much as long as the community has. So they are definitely strong, lovely members of our community. And I would even say, if we wanted to go farther into BDSM history, I think, for example, the authors of the very famous books, the New Topping and the New Bottoming books, both of those people at one point or another have switched. So they went from being like female submissive bottoms to tops and switches and doms. And so it's switches are perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with them. You are great. You are wonderful. All right. Let's see. Next question. How's your sleeping pattern lately? You know what? If you had asked me any other day this week, I would have been like, it's great. I've been sleeping all the way through the night. I have not been staying up until 3 a.m. Unfortunately, last night I did stay up until I think 1, which is good. I'm fine with staying up until 1. Like midnight, 1 o'clock is like my goal bedtime, because I am like more productive and creative in the evenings. But I went to bed and I just like could not fall asleep. I think I fell asleep at like 5 a.m. and then I got up at 9:30. So I might be a little bit loopy because I didn't take a nap today because I had a lot of like Patreon phone calls and stuff kind of scattered throughout the day. And so there wasn't like a good chunk of time for me to nap before this live stream. So I might be a little bit loopy. Don't hold me accountable for that. I cannot be held liable for things that I say under 4 hours of sleep. Please let me know if FetLife is registering new users. I think they are. See, that might also be... I'm going to turn down the volume of my mic a little bit. I think they are. I haven't tried to make a new FetLife account recently. Yeah, it just says not a member yet. Sign up to FetLife. It looks like it's the same as it's always been. If you are in a different region of the planet besides the US, registration for FetLife might be restricted. If it is, I don't know about that because I don't live wherever you live. All right. That being said, FetLife is increasingly something that I really only use to find events and like connect with other educators, and that's pretty much about it. I got reactive again on FetLife for a little bit, for just like a couple of days, and in that time, I got friend requests for so many blank profiles and dick pic profiles, and people that are like, "Hey, baby, I'm new to the area. Are you down to fill in the blank?" And I was like, "No, block. I don't care. I block and mute everybody." That reminds me. So in one of the things that I brought up in the video that I did, of course I've clicked away from it now, so now I have to go back. In the how to spot a fake submissive video, one of the points I brought up, I think it was literally the first one, where I talked about people that just send like cold call messages and are like, "Hey, mistress, will you please step on me?" And it's like, first of all, I'm not a mistress. And I just said, like, and I hold by this. Block or mute anybody. You do not have if you're already friends with somebody, you're in a relationship with them, that's different. But if they're just literally a random person on FetLife that has messaged you out of the blue, that lives 3,000 miles away, you have no obligation to answer their message. And I say this because I know a lot of submissives, especially female submissives, that have been socially trained, I guess is the word. So the social expectation is to be nice and courteous and polite. And so you might feel like you are required to respond to all of these insane messages, and you're not. So feel free to block. I know I ended up in the trap when I was very, very early on in my kink journey, where I felt like I had to answer like every single message, and I felt like I had to respond to everybody. They could be like a 50-year-old man from Italy, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I should message this person back because I don't want them to feel bad. And then I quickly realized that none of them actually give a shit. If it's a random person just messaging you, it's just probably because they want to jerk off, and so you don't have to participate in that. But somebody did leave a comment that says, "I try not to block or mute people. Instead, I try to use such moments as an opportunity to teach them and ask how much experience they have. If you constantly block and mute people, then how are they ever going to get a chance to learn and grow if they're actually interested in kink? I know I'm guilty of some of this stuff from when I first started it, and now 5 years into BDSM, I have a much better grasp on what's appropriate and what I was actually looking for." So I think there's an important note to bring up with this, which is there are some people that are just flailing around in the dark, that don't know what to do and want to know the right thing to do, and are just like, "I'm just guessing, I'm throwing darts, I'm seeing what sticks. Lord, please help me because I do not know what I am doing." And then there are people that know exactly what they're doing, and they are casting as wide a net as possible, messaging every female under the age of 29 that makes a FetLife account and just goes, "Hey baby, what's up?" If you send me a one-line message that says, "Hey, you look hot, want to hook up?" I don't feel bad about blocking or muting that person. That person has not indicated to me that they feel like they want to know about BDSM. They're treating FetLife as a hookup website, which it's not. It is not a dating website. It's not a hookup app. You're looking in the wrong place. You're barking up the wrong tree. So I don't feel bad about blocking those people. I think there could be room for that if you have somebody that, like, attempts to send you a nice message where it's like they just don't understand what they're doing yet. They haven't figured it out. And, hey, don't call me mistress. I didn't ask for that. You're not supposed to start role playing in a first message to somebody. Like, I think under those circumstances, it is more okay to I mean, however you try to handle it, like, it's on you. You don't have to listen to my advice. I found that is what works for my energy and how much time I want to spend on FetLife. However, for me, teaching y'all is my job. Also, I have a grip. I have a grip strengthener thing. Actually, I got 3 of them. They look like eggs. They're very fun. They're kind of my fiddle toys. I recently got back into dancing and working out because I'm fully vaccinated now. And so I need to rebuild up my lost grip strength so I don't die. Because my wrists are so... Well, first of all, your wrists and your fingers don't technically have muscle. It's actually your forearm, but that's a story for another day. Anyways, back to the actual question. Because teaching y'all is my job, I don't feel like I need to answer every random fucking person on FetLife with like, here's a full introduction to BDSM so you know how to behave properly. I also find that stuff is like, if you Google like, how do I do BDSM, like, it's very accessible now. So I feel like the excuse barrier of like not knowing how to behave like an adult to like other human beings on the internet, like, I just don't have the same tolerance that I had like 5 years ago. I'm like, if you wanted to know, you probably could have Googled it. So I don't feel like you're obligated to educate somebody just because they act like a dick in a message to you on FetLife. But if you want to do that, that's fine. I just don't have the additional capacity to do it because I don't need to be doing my job literally all the time with everyone ever. But if you're not doing this as a job, maybe it's easier for you to do that, in which case I commend you. And I don't think you have to be an asshole about it. Like, there's a difference to like responding to those messages. Like, you're responding to a spam email message where you're like, fuck you, how dare you say that to me, that was so disgusting, you're awful. First of all, they may be getting off from the humiliation. That's what they were after in the first place. But I don't think you have to be rude. It's just like, you are setting how much energy you want to have in that interaction. And if you don't want to spend your time in that person, that's why you block and mute them. Like, you're not friends, you don't know this person, they messaged you out of the blue, not knowing whatever, like, you don't have any obligation to them, you have no relationship. But, I think that's the kinder path than sending them a nasty message telling them that they're a horrible person. If you decide you want to gently correct them and tell them, hey, this is fine. Also keep in mind, you are probably not the first person to do that also. I find that, again, while there are some people that just don't know what they're doing and are flailing around in the dark because they haven't learned better and nobody's taught them, I think a lot of people do know exactly what they're doing. And they're just seeing what they can get away with because they're casting a really wide net. And they just don't really care because they're there to jerk off. And so they're not really interested in having an appropriate response or not. That's my take on the situation. You may think differently. I would love to know what y'all are thinking about that in the YouTube chat. On unorthodox topic, but those are the best IMO. Yes, I agree. Have you ever thought about doing a scent fetish play video? I've done lots of videos where I talk about like sensation and I've talked about like scent and stuff. But when it comes to very specific narrow fetishes, like scent fetishes, amputee fetishes, just like any of the foot fetishes, like, I don't tend to make videos about specific fetishes for a couple of reasons. One, because people that are strict fetishists on the internet tend to not know how to behave themselves. And whenever I've even approached a subject vaguely related to something like that, my email and my comments are flooded with people being like, yes, mistress, please do fill in the blank fetish activity I vaguely mentioned as an educational topic thing to me. And I can't handle that. So, unfortunately, fetishists don't always seem, for some reason, I've talked about this before. It's like, there's like, these are real people obviously that have these fetishes and they're totally legitimate, no shame for having a fetish, no kink shaming, but they, like, the behavior is so inexplicable. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you are a real person that, like, probably, like, has a part-time job and, like, has gone to school and, like, been a member of a society at some point. Like, what, why are you acting this way? It doesn't make any sense. So I tend to not do videos about, like, specific fetishes because it tends to attract people that think that all women are pro-doms or doms, and that they think that for some reason me talking about the subject is an invitation for, like, role-playing in my comments and, like, spamming my email with business proposals to, like, have me step on them or wanting to smell my armpits or whatever. I just can't. I have no patience. I have no patience. But so that's why I've talked more generally about fetishes, like, just kinks versus fetishes and, like, what it's like to have a fetish. Like, I've talked about those subjects because I think for the most part, if I just talked about, like, what is a fetish, like, it would be a 3-minute long video, because actually defining the fetish is very simple, and, like, understanding the motivations behind a particular fetish, like, you can summarize that in 3 or 5 minutes. But the core advice around how to navigate your relationship with a fetish you have, how to talk to your partners about a fetish, the answers are pretty much always going to be the same. And also the answer is there are going to be people that are into that in BDSM, but it's going to be really small because fetishists don't tend to really interact in BDSM in the same way. Like, there are people that have a fetish for balloons, a fetish for latex, but they kind of exist on the periphery. So if you're trying to get into the BDSM community to get a fetish need met, you're probably honestly not really going to find it unless you happen to find a specific group on FetLife for that fetish and you happen to meet somebody that's in your same geographic area. Otherwise, you're just going to be rolling the dice, because most people are not getting into BDSM because they have a very niche fetish that they need to get met. Mostly those people tend to go to pro-doms, or they just try to incorporate it into, like, their otherwise vanilla relationship. Typically is also the big thing is that I am not a psychologist or a sexologist. There's not a lot of professional studies that specifically deal with one narrow fetish, and even if those were around, I don't have access to them because I don't have access to the journals where these things are published. So there's not really so much that I can offer. And the book that I actually have in my FAQ, the book that I do recommend is called Fetish Sex by Violet Blue. And that has an overview of, like, everything from, like, I don't know, necrophilia all the way over to, like, plushies. Like, it has everything in there. And I think if you wanted to know about fetishes, like, that would be the book I would read because it summarizes so much of it. And again, the advice for pretty much all the fetishes is more or less a version of the exact same thing. It's just a matter of defining who likes this fetish and why. And that's like a 2 to 5 minute long explanation. Anyways, that's a very long answer to a short question. I apologize. I tend to do that. Your experience, that's better than a good test taker with a degree. I don't know. I have experience with some things. That does not make me a therapist or a practicing medical doctor. They also have experience. Also, there's a lot of kinky medical doctors and therapists and mental health professionals, as it turns out. So I will allow them to have those conversations. No, so this is totally not a super personal question. If you feel comfortable sharing, go for it. So Teddy Tiger asked, but whenever me and my partner talk about kinks, I get super nervous and freeze up. I love kinks / talking about kink. I'm just very nervous. Advice. Well, my friends, I will have you know, I have a video that, what did I call that video? I don't even remember. This is from years ago. It's probably like 2 or 3 years old at this point. I made a video and it goes over advice. I think it's called, like, how to have hard conversations or something. Let me see if I can find this. Where would this be? Where would this be? Let me find this video for you. Hard conversations. I have one that's more recent that's called Opening Up, but that's not really the thing I'm thinking of. I can't find it. It's out there. It's somewhere on my channel. It's like 2 to 3 years old. But to really give you the meat of the video for the sake of this answer, I would say if you are having trouble verbalizing things, but you have thoughts, there are a couple of options you have. So something actually, who was this that told me this story? Was this like Nixia? It was somebody in the kink community told me this. And basically what they do when they have hard conversations, and by hard, not necessarily like emotionally intense, but like difficult to get your words out because it's very personal, they stand or sit on the other side of a door from whoever it is that they're speaking to. So if they have to like talk about an emotionally intense thing, just being on the other side of a door from a person, because there's that visual block, helps them feel less inhibited. So they feel like more open to talk about their feelings because they're not worried about their partner looking at their nose run or seeing them cry or, you know, feeling judgment from their partner's eyes or whatever. Like that helps them relax. I would also say if that isn't helping or isn't really kind of what you're struggling with, I really think like sending emails or text messages actually can be a really good tool. Like, let's say, for example, you get like so choked up, you can't say anything at all. I think like texting your partner and like having a conversation. I mean, they can text you back also, but like you can literally be in the same room as a partner and they can be saying things to you and then like you text them a response back. So you can still have that conversation and you can be honest with your words. But if you're struggling with getting the words out of your mouth, actually like just texting it can be really helpful. If you don't want to use phones, if like phones are too distracting or it seems too passive aggressive or something, you can also do, and this is the suggestion I gave in that video, what you can also do is you can have a whiteboard, like one of those little like handheld like fridge whiteboards that are pretty small. Excuse me, I have to cough. What you can do is you can have one of those fridge whiteboards and you can write out your responses on that and then like show it to your partner. You can go back and forth with like the same whiteboard or just you or whatever it is you want. If you want to like reflect on your thoughts, like sharing a journal can be really good, or sharing a Google Doc, something like. There are lots of ways to get around the like talking about the thing makes me nervous problem. There's lots of ways to do it. Of course, the biggest thing that's going to help you get over it is practice, because, you know, we live in a very Puritan society, and talking about things that make us horny or intimate things or emotional things, anything involving intense emotions or sexual feelings or anything at all, just is something that we are taught to like not talk about, and it's shameful and bad. And so you're trying to kind of overcome that conditioning of it being like a scary like thing to talk about. And so the more practice you have at that, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince your brain that having these conversations is okay. And so the more that you can practice showing your brain that these conversations are okay over time, and that could take a while, you will get less nervous over time the more practice you have, you know, having these conversations. But the only way you're going to get better at it is if you try. So even if you can only talk for like 2 minutes, that's fine. You're making groundwork, and that is, or ground, that's not the phrase, is it? Making headway, I think. Making headway. You're making headway, and that's the important part. Hopefully that helps. Okay, next question. About your recent video, it seems like a lot of your examples lean towards fake male submissives. That's interesting. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk to people about also. Because let me pull up the actual like Google Doc that I used for the notes for that video. It's really funny that people say that, because some of them are that way, but some of them I actually specifically was thinking about female submissives. So let me, where is that in my Google Docs? There we go. So, you know, the cold call thing, that's totally like a fake male sub thing, generally speaking. The forcing titles right away, like that totally, like there are people, there are femme people, non-binary people that force daddy on people right away. Like totally, that I was thinking, you know, sort of, you know, mistress is the classic one because it's the most common. There's definitely people that, you know, they come out of the gate and they're like, daddy, 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 master, master, master. And it's like, girl, I don't know you. What? So that was both genders. All the genders really are guilty of that. Making everything sexual, that is more geared towards like fake male submissives. I would say again, I think, female submissives can totally do that as well, but they tend to go about it in a different way. Like, in that sense, it's less about like, oh, I want you to be my key holder and chastity and step on my balls and peg me mistress. Like, it tends to be less of that kind of stuff, and it tends to be more like they like think that like offering in a first message to like, chortle your balls or like suck your dick or something is like what doms are looking for, and so they make it really sexual because they have the expectation that's what like all male doms want. So that can happen, but it's a little bit different. I have no limits or no boundaries. That's totally any gender does that. I would say in some senses actually female submissives do that more, at least my experience, at least in the real life community. One of the other things that people said, or one person said this, let me not generalize it too much. One person said, this seems like stuff that all happens online. I've never experienced this in the real life community. I have seen, with the exception of the cold call thing and making everything sexual, I have seen all of these in real life. Like all of these are things that I've seen in real life or heard about happening in real life. So totally not just an online thing. No boundaries, no limits. For female submissives, that's why I had the story in there about how it's sort of, you get the idea that like doms want somebody that's totally available for everything, and so you're trying to impress them. That aspect of it is specifically when I've seen like female submissives that say they have no boundaries. I think for male subs, it comes more from like a fantasy realm place, and with female submissives it comes more from like fake submissives or wannabe submissives. It comes from a place of like feeling like I need to say I have no limits because that's what doms want and that is what will impress them, as opposed to it being like a fantasy arena thing, which I think most of the fake male sub things come from like, I want to make my wank fantasies into reality, even though that's not technically possible. That tends to be the direction. Constant contact and emotional manipulation were totally female sub ones. That I was entirely thinking about like fake female submissives on that one. I'm sure male submissives do that as well. I know from like pro doms I follow on Twitter and pro doms that I know in real life. Like there are definitely a lot of needy like male subs that are like, mistress, please. You have not responded to my text message in 5 minutes. Like they do stuff like that. But like the emotional manipulation and the constant contact stuff, I was thinking primarily about like wannabe female submissives that just don't understand that being a member of the BDSM community is not a cure for your cluster C personality disorder. It is it is not how you fix having a lot of, for lack of a better term, issues around, dependency and contact and fear of cheating and lack of trust. Like you don't fix that with BDSM. So that is where that came from. Forcing people into play, that came out of a specific story that has happened in our community that, where I live, where we had a very robust debate about how to handle it when people try to bring their role play roles into non-kink conversations at kink events. So munches are like the social hour or the social space of a BDSM party. Because there was somebody who did this that I actually know and like am friends with in the community who did this, and they're little, and like their littleness is like kind of rooted in childhood trauma. And so for them, getting to engage in their little side and then having that rejected because people around them don't want to be little with them or don't want to be their big or whatever, like that is like reactivating of their childhood trauma. And so they felt like, well, if I'm being a little like around you, you shouldn't reject me because that's gonna like activate my trauma response. And it's like, well, this is a munch, and so that's not really what we're here to do. And also this is the social hour of a party that is not themed for littles, and so I don't, and none of us have like a kink dynamic with you. None of us have like done like DDLG CGL play with you before, and so Like we haven't negotiated a scene. Like if you gotta, either basically we had to come up with some kind of way of like navigating around that as a community with this particular person, which was a little bit of a process. So that's where that one comes from. I've seen it multiple other times as well, like conventions and things, but like the specific instance that sparked me putting that point in was like that memory of that happening. And then not following through on rules, expectations, that's a both gender thing. Overdependence or using submission as a substitute for adulthood, that was a female sub thing. And financial manipulation was also something I was primarily thinking about female subs with. So very much a mixed bag. I would say like the earlier ones I think are more steered towards male submissives, and the later ones I think are more towards like female, but most of these are any gender. I just think we happen to stereotype bad submissive behavior as being because of bad male subs, which is not fair to male submissives. There are hashtag not all men submissives, hashtag not all male submissives. Yeah, hopefully that clarified it. I was not trying to be gender biased in any way. People seem to have interpreted it in a gender biased way, and I was really just trying to be gender neutral. All right, next question. Okay, somebody had a suggestion for Teddy on the earlier question of talking about kinks with your partner. Try saying what you want in a mirror for practice, then build up your confidence to say in a person. Yes, that is also a really, really good suggestion for sir. For what did I just say? Really good suggestion. I said she and her together as one word. And I don't even think I don't know what your pronouns are. That is a good suggestion for Teddy. Thank you, Kim. We love it when we contribute in the chat. Okay. Next question. Oh, I see. Another issue that I have is my brain just goes blank. We start talking about what we want to do, and then my mind just erases everything I've ever known. Okay. Suggestion. Can you draw it? You don't have to think in words. You don't have to have complete sentences. I highly doubt your brain is literally just pressing like delete all. Like, I don't think it's clearing your hard drive entirely. I think it seems like you have some kind of mental block around like accessing talking about that. And maybe the road to kind of get around that would be through like drawing it out. Like, don't try to access your brain in a verbal way. Try visualizing, try engaging with your fantasies, and try to create an image of those fantasies, because that might be like safer for your brain to like, because it seems like what happens is I'm not diagnosing you with anything. I don't know what your life history is. It looks like your brain has some kind of very strong mental block around being vulnerable in this area. And your brain is shutting this off because it's trying to protect you. It's like, no, this is too vulnerable. I can't share this because if I share this, bad things are going to happen. My partner's going to hate me. They're going to think less of me. Just delete it all, right? And the way to work around that block is to basically trick your way around it in a sense. So if you can kind of go, oh, I'm not trying to tell my partner about stuff. I am just thinking of my favorite fantasy. Oop, I'm drawing the fantasy. I'm going to write a little story about it. And there are ways you can get around that block. And again, you want to eventually get to the point where you can kind of help your brain understand that doing that isn't scary and bad. But you got to really finesse it. It sounds like you got a lot of finessing you got to do in terms of being able to get to the point where you can access talking about that stuff. And I would also maybe think, let's see, it's interesting. I think there are a lot of directions that could potentially go in, but I think that's where I would start from. If you're having trouble with the auditory, like a written component of it, think about it in a visual way. That might end up being easier. Stay hydrated, you wonderful people. I have no water. I should fix that. Also, additional idea, if the issue is around specifically what should we do? This is great. If you have, literally this works for so many things. If you have trouble identifying a feeling, if you have trouble identifying what you want to do, if you have trouble identifying what you don't want to do, right? Make a list. Pre-make for yourself. Print one online. Download it on your phone. Whatever it is you have access to. Have, list of feelings. List of BDSM activities. And then when your partner goes, what would you like to do? You have a pre-printed list of 100 different activities. And when you are either one, not in a space when you are talking with your partner, you're just alone with yourself, your brain feels safe, you go through and you highlight, you circle, you whatever, you cross off the list. These are the things that I want to do. And then when you have that conversation with your partner, your brain can't shut down on you because you already did the list. Too late for that, brain. No shutting down here. And if you also want to do this, I think, having some kind of way to like tell your partner when like these feelings are too intense and I'm like starting to shut down, like raise your hand, put a like X over your mouth, like figure out a way to communicate with your partner that this is getting to be too much. Like I'm starting to shut down. We need to like revisit this conversation, or you need to take over the conversation or something, whatever it is, however you want to handle that. But having a, it's like a yes, no, maybe checklist, or just a list of BDSM terms or activities or objects or whatever, whatever it is, however you want to organize it. Having that list and already having gone through it yourself in private will make it easier. If you're trying to identify, this is a specific thing that I want to do for a scene right now, not my general interests, you can then pick from the things you already circled on the list, right? You can kind of go, oh, am I feeling more this direction, and just like close your eyes and feel it out. And hopefully that'll help you get more in that direction. Okay. I need to get water, so I will be back in 2 seconds. All right, we are back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Why are there more people here than were here before I left? I don't know. Welcome. Okay. Let's see. Where were we? I have gotten some iced tea. We are continuing onward. Yeah, smash the like button. Yes, please. I don't know if that does anything for live streams, but we won't know until we try. Let's see. Where do I want my hair? Do I want my hair this way? Yeah, I'll have my hair this way, I guess. No, I don't like it. I don't like how it feels this way. Okay. Do you have any recommendations for bringing DS energy into scenes? That is a great question. I do, but it depends on what type of DS energy. I would say the most general thing would be titles, probably would be the most general, like using titles, kneeling, eye contact restrictions, having to say things like yes sir, no sir, please sir, things like that, really basic verbal commands. I think those are pretty good to use in scenes for, a power exchange flavor if you want to see how it feels, that aren't necessarily too specific if you're trying to get a feel for exactly what it is that you like. But if you want to go kind of deeper than that, then it depends on the flavor of DS you're looking for. I am really liking being able to play with this during live streams. I had a nickname that when I was a child that came from me being very fidgety and fiddly. I do not have ADHD. I have the opposite of ADHD, if that's possible. But being able to have something that I play with when I get nervous about stuff or whatever, like it, I don't know. I like it. Not that I really get nervous when I live stream, but it's like just something to keep my hands and fingers occupied. Oh, yeah, I'm a switch. I don't understand the assumption that I'm faking one side of it. It's so frustrating. Oh, yeah, people do like the bisexual thing where it's like, you have to pick a side. Like, it's 2021, people. Like, get over it. People do both. Like, please relax. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, exactly, Kim. Practice builds confidence. Keep at it and you will get it. Yes, totally, totally, totally. Oh, very cool. There was, what was it? We had a BDSM online event last week in Germany. It was pretty cool. There were different classes, for example, online play, distance play, trans and kink, bondage, book club. Oh, cool. Yeah, it was nice to get to see people from all over Germany. Very nice. It's always good to see things happening online. Yes, good pun, Candace. You could turn a switch on or off by pushing a button. Wouldn't it be flipping a button? Something like that. Yeah, people have weird opinions about switches, which is just like, come on, get with the times. Let's stop being biphobic and switch phobic, please. We're so much more evolved than that these days, or at least I hope we are. Oh no, the submissive that introduced me to BDSM years ago has the unfortunate opinion that switches don't exist. People are just confused. I swear. People are just not with it. Not with the times. Get with the memo. Interesting question. Can a sub and a leader be in a relationship? For a second, I thought that said, this is less interesting than I thought. I thought it said, can a sub be a leader in a relationship? Yeah, I don't know what a leader means. I think use whatever title you want. Master, leader, boss, daddy, mommy, auntie, whatever. Like king, lord, God, creator of the heavens and earth. Like use whatever title you want. The title isn't the important part, because you can use a title for whatever it is that makes sense to you. I would say in a more general sense, which is why I was excited that when I read this really briefly, is I think that the characteristics of a good dom often go with business advice about what makes a good leader. And I think that's very, very interesting. Those two are correlated, but maybe not in the way that you were intending. I went to a virtual class on switching by Lee Harrington, and it was so good. Gave me lots to think about. I felt very seen as a switch. Oh yeah, I wanted to go to that class also, but it was at the same time as something else I was doing, so unfortunately I missed it. But Lee Harrington's awesome. Always very good stuff. I have always felt validated when I have gone to a Lee Harrington class. I think they do, because also I've been in classes where like Lee is also a student, and like Lee is the one that in a class is like, hey, have you thought about the ableist implications of this thing? And it's like, oh shit, you're right. You're right. Let's have a conversation about that. And it's good. Lee's good people. Have you ever thought about doing a video on SM and the law, talking about court cases like mine, parentheses, Paddleboro? What is Paddleboro? I'm going to have to Google this. Is this a person? Is this a place? Is this a thing? I don't know. I am not a lawyer. I do not feel in any way equipped to commentate on anything related to the specific legalities of a case. Oh, this is like if this is what it is. Okay, I found a news article about it. This is from 2001, a year after this thing happened, apparently. A group of S&M enthusiasts who partied on the 4th floor of the Foster building now no longer rent the space in the old factory. But the aftermath of the controversial raid on one party a year ago today, which gave the city the derisive name Paddleboro, still lingers in court on the internet. The Paddleboro Defense League, which still maintains a capital W website, this is 2001, devoted to the case, marked the anniversary last week with a fundraising auction on the online auction site eBay. Could you get more 2001 than this? I think not. I know nothing about this. I am not a legal commentator. I cover things like, the Marilyn Manson situation. Those haven't gone to court yet. And I'm not commentating on like the court proceedings or like police raids or whatever, because I don't know. I'm there to cover it mostly from like a consent and like healthy relationships perspective. But I have never heard of that before. I mean, maybe at some point, maybe I would do a Bailey Sarian and maybe I would cover like historical BDSM cases. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But I guess it was something that was already resolved and I could just report on the facts of the case. But also, like, 70% of these fucking cases that get plastered in the news is like BDSM bondage enthusiast murdered by girlfriend. Like, it ends up just being that people retroactively use the defense of BDSM to try and say that, like, their murder was consensual and, like, it obviously wasn't BDSM. So it's, like, almost not even worth it to cover. And that would be my reluctance, because it's a shitty defense. Well, okay, this one says that was published in 2001, and it said 1 year later. So is the article lie? I don't know. Is there a better alternative to FET for the online community? Not that I know of, unfortunately, because if there was one, I would be in it. I have a Dear Moron post on FetLife that I reply with. That's great, Infinite. I love that. It's a perfect idea. Would you recommend FetLife to newbies or people who aren't too experienced with BDSM? Yes, but I recommend using it in a very particular way. As I've said earlier in the stream, I do not recommend using FetLife as a dating website, as a hookup website, anything like that. Use it to find your local community, find where events are, and then go to those. That's what it's for. Figure out where your local, who hosts the local Zoom munch, who hosts the local, orientation for new people. Like, you go there to figure out where your local community is and like how to find that, and then you log off and answer no messages. That's really what it is. But if you try to be really active on there and post a bunch of nude pictures and interact with people, you're going to get a lot of creepy people that like don't understand boundaries. And so it's not really worth it, I think, to be like overly active on there. But it does have its purposes, and you socialize with people on there. Eventually, when you do meet people in real life or through Zoom calls or whatever, you socialize with them outside of those spaces, typically on FetLife, but like it's not really a good way to like meet strangers typically. Not that it never happens. I met 2 of my first BDSM partners through FetLife, but that was a very particular scenario where I was in a small college town, and so the vast majority of people that were on FetLife in my area were other college students. And so not the same thing as being a random 28-year-old in the middle of a big city. It's very, very different. Very, very different scenarios. So keep that in mind. What pounds do you typically lift? I just started, so I'm at 8 pounds. I don't know for what you mean. For bicep curls, I do 15 pounds on one arm. So I guess 30 total. Although I do more if I'm doing like a bicep curl with like an easy bar or whatever, then it's different. Not going to get too much into weightlifting stuff. I've not been able to go to the gym for a while. I do have resistance bands at home, so I've been able to, maintain my strength level, except for some like back muscles. It's very hard to work out back muscles at home without a pull-up bar. So I have not been keeping up with that, but that is what I lift for bicep curls, which I'm guessing is what the 8 pounds is referring to. I don't know what else that could be. Yeah. But for grip strength, I think this one I think is 70 pounds. Is this one is what is whatever 32 kilograms is. These are measured in metric for some reason. Whatever that is. I feel like a lot of people also have messaging, quote, guidelines in their profile, and 90% of unsolicited messages don't read it, which is why I say definitely on them. Yeah, that's also a thing, Stevie. I feel like the basics of the internet should be taken to mean, oh, hey, random person I just met online. I will not read your profile, and then I will message you anyways. Or I will ignore your profile because I assume it does not apply to me. Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Very true. I mean, and I guess if you were going to respond to that, it would be like, hey, did you read my profile? Because if you did, you would have known not to do this. So read profiles in the future. It will help you. But some people just don't get it. Some people just do not get it. What do you think of the dating app Field? Somebody else has mentioned this to me, and I have not used it. I'm going to wait until my local community reopens, and then when I get back to doing stuff for real life, like if I'm going to meet somebody, it's probably going to be through that. But I'm totally open to using a dating app. I just don't have the energy, and I don't want to. I am happy being me with my dog, hanging out, doing stuff that I enjoy for me, and not worrying about other people that I may or may not be able to meet in real life for several more months. I got offered $50 from some random fellow to take a picture of my feet at the store. Oh my God. At a store? Oh no. Wow. I've never heard that happening in real life. That's almost impressive. How just outlandish. How bold. How crass do you have to be like, hey, random lady, I don't know. I like your feet. If you give me if I can give you $50, I will just give me photos of your feet, please. $50, please. Like, how does that conversation go? What? How does that conversation go? Oh my God. I'm not really active in the community, but I do feel like male doms are seen to do it because they enjoy it sexually. Meanwhile, female doms are usually seen to do it for money. What do you think? I certainly think that female pro doms are stereotyped as doing it for money. I wouldn't say that female doms in the community as a whole, like as in the lifestyle community, I don't think the stereotype is there for female doms that do it for that reason. I just think they're so rare that I don't even know if there can be a stereotype about their motivations. If there is one that's not money, I'm not aware of it. I would say with male doms, the stereotype is something sexual in nature. I guess the outside assumption from people that aren't in the community is that male doms dominate female submissives because they are misogynist. Like, they believe that women are inferior to men and they're acting on that through power exchange. I would say that's a stereotype from like outside of the community, but I think inside of it. But I also think if you're in the community, you don't have those stereotypes because you interact with so many people that have so many different motivations that you stop judging people based on stereotypes. That's the goal, at least. That's what I would hope would happen, is we would stop just making assumptions about everything. So I know people briefly brought up race play in the context of being a person of color. I would say there's definitely, again, there's not going to be any one way to think about that. For example, actually, I have an interview on the channel you can listen to with Milena Williams-Haas. And there are definitely people of color that find aspects of race play to be really empowering, and they accept that it's edge play, and they want to do that, and they have that in their relationships. And there are people of color that find it very offensive and would never want to have anything to do with it. So it's really hard to make blanket statements about it. And this is why we have little phrases like, your kink is not my kink, but your kink is still okay. I would add the caveat, as long as it is consensual. And I think we should be careful not to make statements about, it is absolutely disgusting that you would ever want to do these things under any circumstances, because there are probably circumstances under which they do make sense that you are not privy to. Glad to be able to watch once more. I want to thank you for the recent videos. I especially love Dominant Pets and Predator Prey. How were they received? It's really interesting. I was expecting the Predator Prey one to be like really popular, and because people have asked me about it for so long, and then it ended up underperforming. Like, YouTube was like, your video is getting less views than normal, and I was like, excuse me, YouTube, I put a lot of work into this. What do you mean? And so that one underperformed. It didn't like do badly. It didn't like bomb. I think it was just like, it was like 7th place out of my last 10 videos. And I was like, listen, y'all complain when I make pop culture videos and talking about James Charles and talking about Marilyn Manson, but those get 20 times the engagement. So like I have people that tell me they want a certain type of video and then I make it and nobody watches it. So, comparatively, not literally nobody, but they get way less engagement. And so it's like people are verbally telling me they want one thing, but then the views are in a different direction. So it makes it really confusing to know what kind of content to make. But I would have made it regardless. Like I know that some subjects are going to get a lower number of views because obviously not every type of kink thing is going to appeal to everyone. And like, I accept that. I just want to have the information out there. But it does suck when I get something requested a lot and then I finally do it and then like nobody watches it. I'm like, thanks. It just makes me very confused. And I'm like, wait, what happened to all these people that said they wanted this video? Where'd they go? Not that I'm really complaining. It's just like, YouTube is a strange place to try and have a job sometimes. Sometimes when people say they want and then what YouTube says did well are two very different things. I am just live on Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I do live streams on Mondays and Thursdays for people on Patreon. But other than that, just here on YouTube on Fridays because... Okay, random person singing outside of my house at 7 o'clock at night. Hats off to you. Okay, interesting question. Do you have any advice on using an age difference for degradation? For context, I'm the younger partner, and I think it would be interesting to use that to degrade my older partner with. Oh my god, this is so great. Because I am in, like, I don't plan this. I don't try to have age gap relationships, but all of my relationships are with people that I happen to have an age gap with. I would say just bring up things that make them feel old. Like, just bring up things that aren't around anymore. That's like, wait, what's an MP3 player? Wait, what is, like, how do you, like, get a floppy disk onto your phone? What do you mean you didn't have an iPhone when you were a kid? What? Just things that make them feel really old and ancient. Like, have them, like, talk about what their favorite, like, whatever their favorite, like, movie or TV show is and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. What is that? Is that on YouTube? Like, just, that's what I would do. But I feel like that might go in, like, an age play direction, so I don't know if you want to do that necessarily. If that's, like, a territory that you're comfortable with. But, like, I just think about stuff like that. And then, obviously, like, old geezer, old man, old lady, like, just, like, anything that just makes them feel old. Like, that's what I would do if you wanted to sort of degrade them for that. But yeah, I don't know if that's the direction you mean to go in, but that's what I would do. When most people say make me, they don't want to be made to do something. How can you say that and actually show that's what you want? I don't think the problem is showing that's what you want. I think the problem is practicing unclear communication. I think that that's an issue you resolve before you even say those words. Like, if you're having problems with your partner, like, saying things and not meaning it, like, you gotta be like, hey, like, we're in a BDSM thing, like, we gotta be clear. So for me personally, what I would do is I would establish that, like, when I say make me, I genuinely mean, in, like, a bratty way, I want to be forced to do something. Or opposite, when I say make me, I'm just trying to be flirty and teasy. I don't actually want you to make me do that. I'm just trying to be flirty and teasy. Like, you have to be very clear what for you mean when you say that phrase or those words. And I think that's what you should do. And if you are saying it, but you don't really mean it, you have to say something else where you are accurately communicating what you want to do. Or you literally just say, make me, like, for real. Like you just like that. I have friends that do that, where they have like bratty, teasy words, but they don't really mean it. And so when they mean it for real, they add on like for real at the end. Like when they say, make me, oh, thank you, Davy Bones. I mean,
Bones donated $5.
mm-hmm.
Hi, Evie Geezer, Boomer Newbie here, been binging on your bits. Inspired to join FetLife, met first kink steps ever at a munch last Friday.
Ooh.
Second munch. Tonight, met some very nice and welcoming people. It was so much fun.
Yay! That's so great. Okay, so if you guys didn't hear that, new person went to a munch, had a great time, went to a second munch, met some really awesome people. We love it. Congrats. That's so awesome. Congrats. That's the best. There's nothing, like for me, there's nothing that can replace the feeling of being seen in the way that I feel like seen and like normal. Like I feel very awkward when I go to like vanilla party situations. I feel like stifled. I feel like cloistered. Like it does not make me feel good. When I am in a kink setting, even when it's a munch, it's just like, oh, finally I can be me. And like I feel normal in those spaces in a way that I don't elsewhere. And it's a big, big relief. So congrats. That's so awesome. All right, let me see. Okay, next question. Okay, this is from K Photo. Can you use collars for more of a connection between you and your partner, both sexual and life, than in a DS situation? Theoretically, you can do anything you want to do, right? We have the social expectation that if you're wearing, if you're in North America, different places are different. If you're wearing a ring on your left ring finger in North America that is taken to mean that you are legally married, you can still, there's no law, you can wear a ring on that finger. Nobody's going to stop you, but it's going to cause confusion. And so theoretically, yes, you could wear a collar without a DS connection to mean some kind of sexual or life connection between you and a partner, just as like a commitment thing. However, I would not encourage you to do that because it does have a special and specific meaning in the BDSM community. And I am not a fan of appropriating BDSM symbols for non-BDSM purposes. There's a million other symbols that you could use to show your commitment and connection to a partner when you're not in a BDSM relationship with each other. I don't think you need to use a collar for that. So before you get to the collar part, I would see if there are other alternatives that you can pick that are not a collar to wear, like a ring on a different finger, or wearing a ring on a necklace, or a decorative necklace, or an anklet, or a bracelet, or a piercing, or a tattoo. Like there are so many other options that you could pick that aren't a collar to demonstrate that connection and commitment. Now, if you are BDSM partners and you also have a sexual and a life commitment to each other, but you're not necessarily fully DS, I do know people that have they have like non-DS relationships. Like I have a friend where they are primarily, I know two people like this actually now that I think about it. They are like primarily in like a rope bondage focused relationship with their partner. They tie all the time. They have a very deep bonded connection. They do impact play. They do other things like that, but they don't like strictly do DS in like a DS sense. There's like a power element there because like they're always bottom, the other person is always top. They feel subservient when they're doing bondage, and like that is kind of subby for them, but they don't really do DS. And one of them wears a magnetic closing collar when they do scenes or when they spend weekends with their partner to like demonstrate like, I'm with you, I'm present with you, like we're doing BDSM stuff. Even though they don't have like a contract that I'm aware of. They don't really have like formal protocol or anything. They just kind of have a nebulous power thing. And the other person I know that does this, they're in a really long-term relationship. Like they've been together for, I don't know, 8 years, I think at this point. And they also don't really have like a proper DS. But this person is like, their DS like is there's no rules, there's not punishments, there's none of that stuff, but there is that power that's still there, that's still like, I am controlled by you, I guess is maybe I'm not them, so I can't describe it, but the vibe I get is it's like a reflection of the other person being in control and them giving up control, even though they don't have like a typical DS structure. So in those scenarios, I do know people that wear collars. For me, that's like kind of borderline because like I generally have a problem with the rope bondage community considering themselves like rope people can be kind of like high and mighty and being like, oh, we're over here. We're like over here with our like cool rope bondage stuff. Like we're not here with the plebs that are with our like floggers or whatever. Like we're over here. And so I kind of am a little bit miffed when like people that only do rope bondage, know other types of BDSM, know anything else, just rope, take other things from other aspects of the BDSM community. And they basically, it's like, imagine if you went to a friend's house, you took a popsicle out of their freezer and then ran out. Like that's the vibe I get. That's the emotional energy I get from that. It's like, wait, what? You just took my popsicle. What do you? And then they go back to their own house. And it's like, fucking, they stole my popsicle. What the heck? That's not fair. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. But there are scenarios where that does happen. So, I think it's important to understand, like, the original intention and meaning behind collars and, like, why those are symbols in BDSM and why we use them and what they mean in our community and that they are important and that they are, like, it's kind of like wearing a wedding ring. Like, it's very important. It shouldn't be treated flippantly, generally speaking. If you are wearing a certain collar that has certain connotations to it, there's a million styles of collars, but if you're wearing like a metal permanent locking collar, like that does have specific community connotations to it. And you should know what those are before you decide to just, wear it willy-nilly. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have people that make that assumption that you are doing the same thing as the general community meaning, right? Oh, you're wearing a collar, therefore you are owned in a DS relationship. And so you have to be kind of prepared to have conversations with people where you explain that that's not what it is. And if you aren't prepared for that conversation or you get offended that people ask, like, you brought it on yourself. Like, if you go to a bar and somebody assumes you're married because you're wearing a ring on your left ring finger, like, you can't really get mad at them for assuming that because, like, that's what people generally understand it to mean. That's just my opinion, though. I think you can wear it for other reasons, but you got to understand, like, what you're doing with it and kind of be willing to maybe bear some criticism for doing that because not everybody's going to be okay with that. But again, that's just me. I am very much sort of do what makes sense for you in your relationship and kind of fuck other people. But I think, respecting our community culture is still also an important value. So I try to balance those two. Good question. Is it healthier to admit one doesn't know one's boundaries yet, rather than desperately claiming to not have them? See, that's interesting, because I can see why, if you are also publicly going out and being like, hey, predators, I'm new, I don't know what my boundaries are yet, please help me find them, predators. Like, you're kind of, that could be dangerous. That may not be a good thing to do. So I probably wouldn't publicly advertise and basically put a target on your back for bad people. They're like, new meat. Yes. Like, I would establish a connection, make sure you can trust somebody, vet them, do all that stuff. And then when you get to that point, then you get into the conversation about like, hey, just so you know, I'm not really super experienced with this yet. I'm not really sure where my boundaries are at. This is kind of what I'm thinking about. This is kind of what drew me into BDSM, but like the edges are really fuzzy. And so you can kind of work around it that way. But I think publicly advertising, I don't know what my boundaries are, my limits are not very solid yet, like that can also be kind of a danger in its own way. I think the important part is that you are honest when you get to that conversation, even if you're not making like you're not making some kind of public announcement about it. Oh my God. I was expected to have no limits and no boundaries in my local scene, and there was a ton of pushback in all of my negotiations. Should have run. Oh my God. That's so awful. Why are people like that? Yeah. Hopefully you got out okay. That's scary. That's scary. That definitely gives me vibes of like somebody was blacklisted somewhere and then made their own dungeon because they could, and then they made sure everybody had the same life philosophy that they did. That's scary. I'm picturing somebody drawing a BDSM scene with crayons. Yes, exactly. I mean, hey, for littles, that would be perfect. That's a great idea. Per writing things down, I found some kink jars blank page online that was fun, and it starts a conversation. You fill your jars up to how much you each like kink, and then share them. Oh, I've seen that going around, for like Tumblr or like Twitter artists. Like they like Twitter artists that draw like fetish stuff. Like they've done that. That's probably the same thing, I imagine. Okay. Da da da. For some reason, I thought it said 7:55, and I was like, where did the last half hour go? No, we're good. We got like 25 minutes left. We're doing great. You don't necessarily need to ping me with questions, but if you do want to at me, that does like draw my eye because it's orange, and so I will see it, but you don't have to. Oh, good question. How do I handle having a significant other that has a fetish I have zero interest in? My girlfriend is into pegging and often asks me if I try it despite saying no. That is a sticky situation, my friend. So, again, I would maybe read Fetish Sex by Violet Blue, that does have good advice in there. I think what I would do. Oh, thank you. Make sure to get the likes up. Yes, thank you, Eric. Please, everyone. Eric has given us $20. Like the video. Like the live stream. Thank you, Eric. Okay. What question? Okay. So, this is really tricky because you do have to balance, like, you feel the urge to like make your partner happy because you care about them. You like it when they're happy with like your own self preservation and your boundaries. And so I feel like you gotta, like, if this is a boundary for you, like, there are no circumstances under which I would ever be comfortable with pegging. Like, you have to establish, like, this is a boundary for me. I'm not gonna get there. If this is something where you haven't really had a conversation about this yet, I think it is worth exploring what about this is like appealing to your partner, because maybe there's something else that you could do that would be similar to pegging or like provoke those same feelings that you would be more comfortable with. And also like exploring in yourself, like, what about this like makes me uncomfortable? Is it my ideas about masculinity? Is it insecurity with that body part? Is it thinking it's going to be painful, or not sure like how you're going to react to it, or worrying about what this means for the other types of sex you have in your relationship? So like if you can kind of get a handle on answering those questions and come to some kind of understanding about, why are they into it? What are you worried about? Is there room for compromise there? Are you willing to maybe go a little bit of a step in that direction? Or if that's totally uncomfortable for you and you never ever want to go there, then is like a boundary establishment point where like this is going to be a hard no for me. I don't want to go there. This is going to be something that like, we can't keep having conversations about. Because at some point, because it depends, right? Like if you kind of give them like hot and cold signals, like when they ask you, like if they're like, oh, I really like to try pegging, like would you be up for trying that like for my birthday? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Like they're kind of holding out hope that eventually they're going to get a yes. And so you either need to have that conversation where you figure out how you're going to get to that yes, like what circumstances make you comfortable for that to happen, or you have to tell them, I've thought about it. I'm really not going to be okay with this. But again, that really depends on if that's coming from like just not knowing about it or having unresolved fears or fears about the relationship and all other stuff. Like there are things to untangle here to kind of figure out what to do. And if you're willing to get into it, but it sounds like from what you're saying that it's like, you're saying no, but they're continuing to ask you, and they just need to understand this is going to be a no for you. But it's hard. Like if like not like there are men that are into pegging, but like a lot of men, like it is very tied up in certain ideas about masculinity, and people feel like being pegged is a form of being emasculated and are very, very reluctant to do it, even when it's something their partners are really into. So it's difficult. It's difficult. I totally empathize with both of you in that scenario because that's really tough. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Hopefully my advice helped a little bit. Let me know because I kind of went in a few different directions there. So definitely happy to follow up with that, but I maybe need to understand the situation better before I do that. What advice do you have for someone who identifies as submissive but is very strong-minded and stubborn, like refusing to go with an order that one doesn't agree with, for example? This actually reminds me. So I'm going to combine an answer for this with another question that I got asked on my fake submissives video. So let me see if I can try and find that again. I think that was one of my recent comments. Let me see, because I got a very similar question. Okay. So somebody else asked, in number 8, quote, they don't stick to agreements. You say that those, quote, fake subs don't really care about the rules, and that made me think if I'm really a sub at all. At first, I would define myself as a switch since I had some experience in both roles with a partner with whom I had had a long-term relationship, and I liked playing both those roles. The thing is, I don't think I would really like to have fixed rules in a relationship with punishments and all of that. I'm all in about communication, negotiations, and mutual agreements, but I think I like my freedom and autonomy too much to like actual rules. I think that I could enjoy rules, but in a controlled situation for a short period of time, like during a scene, although I would be very tempted to break a rule just to see what happens. So my question is, could I be considered a sub or a switch, or even a BDSMer at all if I'm not that engaged in BDSM, or see it as more as a very fun form of entertainment while not really being that interested in rules or punishments? So my overall answer is if you do not want a DS structure, then you are not doing DS, which is dominance and submission. So, like, the form that structure takes can be a lot of different things. The different tools that we use in the community that are the most common would be, punishments, discipline, rules, rewards, rituals. Like, those are the tools that people generally use. You could construct a DS relationship where those things aren't present, or some of those things are present but not others. I would say it's really hard to do that. And if your response to rules in general is, I never want to obey a rule that I don't personally agree with, then you're going to have a lot of difficulty finding a DS relationship that will work for you. Because essentially what you're really saying is, I want to obey you, but only so long as you are also obeying what I want to do, which is not really how DS works. Because there's a great book I would recommend maybe checking out that'll illuminate some of this for you. And it's called Building the Team. It's by Raven Caldera and Joshua Tenpenny. And there's an idea that we have in power exchange called alignment of the wills. And the idea is the submissive's will is kind of supposed to like align eventually over time with like the dominant's will. So like you're kind of agreeing with their path based on you having mutually like connected values and like having similar motivations and things. And like, you're not going to have a DS relationship that works if you have totally different values, totally different life goals, totally different intentions. Like, you have to have those things first to get to the point of alignment of wills. But like, that's the intention. So, I think there's like agreeing in like, I agree with it morally. I agree with it in terms of my values. I agree with it in terms of my limits and boundaries. Like, yeah, those are reasonable. If it's simply, I agreed to a rule that I would go to bed at midnight, but I don't want to agree with that right now. I really think I should stay up until 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. or whatever. Like, you don't get to decide to not obey rules just because you suddenly don't like them anymore. And like, that's the problem. So it's interesting because it's like, I don't know how to phrase that in like the way that I intend it to mean. Because like, I'm not saying like you should always obey your dom in like all circumstances. Because like, we have the concept of like unlawful orders, right? Like, if you're given an unlawful order, like, you're allowed to disobey that. But the circumstances for that are very specific and clearly outlined. So like, if a partner is asking you to do something or makes a rule unilaterally outside of your boundaries, like, you don't have to follow that. But let me see if I can get back to the specific question. I'm trying to find it again. Some identifies as submissive, but is very strong-minded and stubborn, like refusing to go through with an order that one doesn't agree with, for example. So I guess that's orders. That's not really rules. If you want to do a DS relationship with somebody, you can't disobey every single order. You can brat. You can play around because you're trying to, like, bratting is about, I want to find the boundaries. I want to fight back, but I want those boundaries to be reinforced ultimately. I'm flailing around because I want the reassurance that my partner's engaged in the relationship with me and will basically still love me at my worst. And I'm really, really reassured of like, they're not going to let me get away with whatever I want. If you are expecting, I just want to be able to say no and not do something because I don't agree with it. And like, that's that, like, you are going to struggle to have a DS relationship and like, actually practice being a submissive if you are really like strong-willed and stubborn to that degree. It's not impossible, especially if you want to, like try and work through that strong-mindedness and stubbornness. But it's hard to do that if you're starting from a place of like, oh, whatever, I don't want to do this. I don't agree with you. I don't think that's the best way to cut a tomato. I'm going to cut it the way that I think tomatoes should be cut. It doesn't matter what you want. The Dom told you to cut tomatoes this way. But yeah, so I don't know if that's like a bratting thing where like ultimately you want to be made to agree. And like part of it is boundary testing to be like, I want to see if you're strong enough to make me do the thing that I don't agree with. And like, that's the part that's appealing to me. Or if you want to just like never have to do something you don't agree with. I would say you could play in scenes, like you could do power exchange scenes as long as you know you're gonna have very specific parameters over how that happens. But like inevitably in a DS relationship and every MS, every OP, every DS class I've ever taken, like this comes up. There is going to be a time where your partner as a dominant gives you an order for something that you don't agree with or that you think there's a better way of doing. And you can respectfully offer that information and say, sir, I actually think this is a more efficient way of folding towels. And if I can be more efficient at this, then I have more time to make you dinner. Like you can offer that information respectfully. But like if they say, no, I like my towels folded this way. That's what makes the difference between a submissive and a bottom. To me, that's what makes the difference. Those tough moments where you have to submit your will to somebody else when you don't necessarily agree with them, like that is where the difference is between bottoms and submissives. Because like you can make up any rules you want, any punishments, any DS structure, but when the rubber hits the road and you have to decide to submit your will to somebody else when it's not exactly the way you want it to be, that is what makes the difference. That is what makes the difference between playing it being submissive and role-playing it and being it. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying that's where the boundaries are. For me personally, that is how I understand the difference if you are doing it in a lifestyle way and you're committed to having a relationship that is framed around this. I think there are other ways to be submissive in other capacities, either being submissive in scenes, being submissive non 24/7. Like there are other frameworks where having that stubbornness and not going through with an order that you don't agree with. But like at the same time, like if you're not going to go through with orders just because you don't like them or you think that they're not the right way of doing something, like you're eroding the DS relationship whenever you do that. Like it takes away the Dom's power. It makes them feel, depowered. It makes them feel like you don't respect them or trust them. Because ultimately it's like also a trust thing. Like, because what you're saying when I don't want to do that because I don't agree with you, what you're saying is I don't trust you to know how to do the right thing. And if you can't trust your Dom to be able to tell you what the right thing to do is, like you're not going to be able to have DS. Anyways, that's a very rambly answer. Hopefully that helped in some way. But yeah, I like that's personally, and again, other styles of DS, other, durations of power relationships, 24/7 versus part-time scene only, partial power exchange, like different circumstances, responses are going to be variable levels of like acceptable for maintaining the structure of the relationship. But like I'm thinking from a 24/7 like committed DS relationship perspective. That's going to be different in other circumstances. Yes. Caspian brought up a good point. What is the point of negotiations if you don't follow through on what you've negotiated? And that's important because I think another aspect of this is like, why don't you agree with it? Because if it's like, if I don't agree with doing this because it falls outside of the boundaries of what we negotiated, this would be violating a limit for me. This would be triggering for me. This would be, something that goes outside the scope we negotiated for. That's the time to have a conversation and be like, hey, like I can't follow this order because this isn't something we actually negotiated to do. That's very different from like, I explicitly agreed to like, this is the structure of our relationship. And then when we get to the point of doing it, then I don't want to do it anymore. So that's the, what exactly the context is really matters. And so it's hard to make general statements about things like that. But, if it's just I am agreeing with it because I decided I don't want to do it in the moment versus like, hey, this isn't actually something I negotiated that you could order me around for. Different circumstances for sure. Different circumstances for sure. Okay, I'm going to move on. Follow up with me if that didn't make sense. Next question. Okay, so there is further clarification, not necessarily bratting either, just generally hesitant or outright refusing to do what one doesn't agree with, or at least disagreeing with the methods completing a task or something. Yes, this comes up, again, lots of times in MSOP DS conversations. Recently, actually, when I was at Colorado Leather Fest, we talked about this. The person, they had just transitioned to a full like TPDS relationship, and what would happen is the submissive always needed to know the why. And they would question, and they would be like, why do you want me to do that? Why do I need to do it this way? And they would get locked into an argument about the why and the reasoning. And that would really take away from, it was just really distracting. And it like made both partners frustrated. It made resentment happen. And the solution they came up with is like, they could, if it was like a big, like why are you making me do this? This is going to be triggering for me. And giving important information that's like, this is like a mental health, like, safety issue that needs to have a conversation. But what they came up with is they were like, I will explain to you why I gave you this order after it is done. The important thing is that it is done. Then we can have a conversation about it as long as it is not a safety and well-being issue. And that really helped them because they found that they could work through the hesitancy and that the purpose and the intention and the methods made sense while they were doing it. And like 90% of the time, the questions were answered over the course of doing the task. And they no longer had issues after the task was done. So yeah, if you're dealing with like a lot of hesitancy or you're disagreeing with the methods of completing a task or something, like the methods is up to the dom. Like as long as you're doing what you negotiated for, it's in your boundaries, limits, and all that stuff, like you don't get to like I don't know how to make an analogy for this that like fully like makes sense. Like it's about like, you know, doing what you're told. And so it's like it's you again, I think if you can try to like execute on the order and then have the disagreement about the methods after, you have that conversation after rather than taking away the moment to have that power exchange. That's my opinion. That's what I have seen work for other people. Okay. We have 15 minutes left, so here's your 15-minute warning. And then hopefully, of course, like over time when you do that DS relationship, you're like, here's the thing. You have to build up trust over time. And so if you are getting too deep into your DS where you don't trust the person yet, where you don't trust their methodology, you don't trust their reasoning yet, like you've gone too deep. You got to back up a little bit. You got to work up that trust first so you can get to that point where you feel more comfortable executing on your orders, executing on your rules as they are directed, as opposed to having to fight every single time. And I say fight not in the like, whoa, like verbally screamy kind of way. I mean just literally like having a disagreement and going like, okay, but why do I have to do that though? Okay, but why? Okay, but why that way? Why now? Can I do it later? Ugh, I'm so busy, please. Can I do it later? Like, you know, don't take away that power from that moment. Build up that trust so you can just lean into the submission, basically. And then if you do have disagreements, like resolve that afterwards and get to the point where you can trust that that person will have that conversation with you if you need to have that. And if you don't trust them to be able to do it, again, back up another step. Go back. Do not go past go. Do not collect $200. Do not go farther than your trust level in each other, you know, actually dictates is going to be beneficial for the both of you. Can you have a DS relationship where sometimes you switch roles? Yes. Yes, switching can happen for tops and bottoms. It can also happen for subs and doms. It can also happen where a submissive is sometimes a top, but not necessarily a dom. And a dom will not necessarily be a submissive, but sometimes dom's also bottom. So it can go in any number of directions there, for sure. For sure. Sorry, we got a little conversation going. I'm trying to scroll through here and catch any questions really quickly. Do you think that nipple stimulation, like vibrating clamps or clamps in general, are good beginner-friendly things to start with? They can be. The problem is that, like, nipples are very individual. Some people touching their nipples, they feel nothing. Other people, it's entirely painful. Other people, it's very pleasurable. Also, different clamps, wildly different levels of intensity. So I would start out with like an adjustable clamp that's very gentle and work your way up. I personally do not like nipple clamps at all. If I thought that all of BDSM with nipple clamps, I would not be doing BDSM. It's not really my thing. But it can be good for some people. It can totally be a good introduction for some people. I think it's an idea that people are like familiar with. Like it's not like anything too wild and out there. So it's good in the sense I think people are like familiar with it. Like, oh yeah, pinching nipples. Like that's like a common enough thing that like some people are into. So it can be good, but I would not want to make it seem like the nipple clamp sensation is everything that there is about BDSM, because it is in some ways a very particular type of sensation that is not necessarily applicable to all other types of kink. Does DS relationship stand for donkey and Shrek? You know, for somebody it does. For somebody it does. Yeah, and definitely being a brat, like, can mean a lot of different things to different people. I'm just giving a general assessment of, like, this is a common reason that brats do their things. But brats do things for, like, a million reasons. So I'm just giving a generalization. It's never the absolute and only reason. Okay, let me see. Oh, I've gone all the way to the bottom. No, I have so many questions I didn't answer. Okay, why is everything involving, like, pegging, like, just got completely just went away? I don't know. Okay. Gosh, so many things I didn't get to. I'm so sorry. Wow, there were like, okay, well, I've literally gone all the way to the top of the chat I can get to, and I'm pretty sure I lost like 30 minutes worth of questions, so I'm really, really sorry. Really, really, really sorry. Let me see here. Stormfelt, which their experience was in Seattle. I think I know what group you were probably interacting with, and the situation I described of somebody being banned and then making their own community is exactly what I was referencing. So it is shitty, because if they can make their own dungeon and they have no outside accountability, there's not really a whole lot you can do about that without getting sued for defamation. So, frivolous lawsuit or not, most BDSM dungeons could not even withstand a frivolous lawsuit, unfortunately. Oh, thank you, Elle. Let me see here.
Donated $10. Is it frowned upon for submissives to buy their own toys? I had quite the collection, lol.
Is it frowned upon for submissives to buy their own toys? I'm sure for some people they would not like that. Personally, I do like having my own collection of toys. I have my own collection. The reason for that is I have specific tastes. I want to have stuff that I know I like when I do a scene, not necessarily depending on DOMs to have things that I might like or not. And also, pretty much anything leather, for example, is going to be fluid bonded to you from like your blood, or if you play, around the genital area with your other bodily fluids. It's those things really, they're, you can leave them out in the sunshine for, a month or two or whatever if you do end up cross-contaminating them with blood or other fluids. But it's not a guarantee necessarily. And so I think it's great to have your own toys. I don't think there should be a problem with that. And I don't know any DOMs that like outright are like, having your own toys is bad. And I think if they're intimidated by that, they're probably not the kind of person you should be doing BDSM with, honestly. Okay, Mr. Beansman said, you mentioned in your most recent video that a lot of female DOMs don't like to be called mistress. What are the common titles then? I would say, what is like Dom, M-E, Domina, ma'am, lady. A lot of them actually like daddy. A lot of female DOMs like being called daddy. Mommy. Those ones are probably like the most common ones that I see, but like, you know, goddess also very, very popular. Yeah, I would say those are probably the most common ones that I see. Sort of combination of personal titles and roles. But I would say as like a general form of address, probably like Miss or Lady is probably the two most commonly preferred ones. But as always, read profiles and see what people like. Okay, we got another question, or another actually good point, Stephen. You really normally should have your own toys for sanitary, and possibly, for example, a person has a peanut allergy and someone uses your toys touched by peanut oil. Yeah. Yeah, also a good point. Yeah, sanitary reasons I think I mentioned. But also, you know, if you have a latex allergy, you maybe don't want to be playing with somebody's toys where their toy bag also has their latex outfit, or they have a toy that's made out of latex or something, like a latex flogger or whatever. I don't know. Like you wouldn't, like there's all sorts of cross. And also, fun fact, avocado allergies can be cross allergens with latex. So you might not even know you have a latex allergy, but if you have an avocado allergy, that can actually be activated by latex as well, and vice versa. So interesting stuff there. Maybe didn't realize that, but yeah, allergies or fragrance as well. You know, a lot of people sometimes they don't like the sweat, like this, like they're like, oh, my toys smell all sweaty and gross. I'm gonna spray some Febreze on it. I'm gonna spray some perfume on it, and then suddenly you're like getting flogged and like wafts of perfume are getting blown into your face. If you're fragrance sensitive as well, that might be a good reason. But yeah, you don't need a reason, but those are just some additional considerations that maybe you didn't think about. A female submissive can also be a goddess. Listen, I don't know what I just said that made you think that those titles were only for doms. I just said those are some titles that doms use. Any title can be used for anybody. I don't give a shit. If you watch my channel for long enough, you know that I think you can be anything with anything. You could be a dragon that calls yourself, you know, mommy rainbow scales. I don't give a shit, okay? Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. It's about what makes you happy. Don't conform to the rules. It's BDSM. Do what you want. Okay. I'm going to try to answer one or two more questions here. Do you happen to have any resources for DS counselors? I'm assuming you mean therapists and not legal counsel, although this will cover both. If you go to if you're in the US, it's primarily in the US and Canada. If you go to the website for the National Coalition of Sexual Freedom, they have a kink professionals directory. It is primarily lawyers, psychiatrists, and therapists. You can sort by state. And that is, I think, the best route to go if you are looking for that. If you don't have luck on there finding people in your area, you can also, when you are doing an initial consultation with a counselor, fucking ask them, do you have experience working with alternative relationship populations? And if they go, what is an alternative relationship population? You have your answer. Please move on. Oh my! You guys really like the, you guys really like the bit about the doing humiliation scene involving age. That's great. I'm so glad we were able to give so many ideas. Y'all are the best. Predator Prey seemed like it was a light overview. Yeah, it's a BDSM 101 video. It's a light overview, not intended to be an instructional video. Also, if I try to make it more detailed, it would not be a 101 video, and two, I generally do not give tutorials on my channel because it is insanely easy to be a 12-year-old making a YouTube account where you pretend you're 18. So I do not generally do anything tutorial related on YouTube because that is not very secure, as it turns out. Right. I said I was going to answer a question, and then I didn't. So many good ideas. If you don't know about how safe or not drinking or licking blood is, then don't engage in it because you do not know enough. That is my advice. I do know because I have been doing blood play for years and I have taken lots of classes on it, including how to draw and drink blood from people that are medical professionals that do it themselves and understand the risks in a very, very, very detailed manner. And also from people that are piercers that understand bloodborne pathogens on like an almost pathologically informed level. So I'm very aware of the risks. If you do not know and just think it sounds unhealthy in a general way, do not do it because you do not know enough. That is my advice. It is edge play. That is why it is not for beginners, because it does require specialized knowledge and education. Also, just because it is unsafe doesn't mean you can't do it. There are lots of things in BDSM we do that are really dangerous, and we do them under controlled and informed circumstances. So, just keep that in mind. People do risky shit all the time. And it's about being informed of the risks and taking the necessary precautions that you agree to. And if you are not informed, then do not do it. Yes, I do have a Twitch also, and that is linked below. Okay, one more question. Let us see what we're doing. Also, if you haven't already, if you have enjoyed the stream, please like it. Drop a like. If you're not on my channel as a follower, maybe give me a follow because we do this every Friday. We're just having so many conversations. Where's a question? I'm trying to find a question. Let me wrap up this video. We're just talking about floppy disks. I've just been talking about floppy disks and pegging. That's where I'm at in the chat. just nothing but floppy disks. Okay. Let me see. Something about soft DOMs. I'm going to skip over that. Okay. Okay. What are your thoughts on people who try to avoid using condoms because you say they're allergic to latex and I think it's free game? There have been really good non-latex condoms for years. I will go and show you one right now. Give me a second. I'll be right back. There. Non-latex condom. If somebody knows they have a latex allergy and then doesn't get non-latex condoms, what they're really saying is, it feels better when I don't have to wear a condom, so I'm making an excuse to not have to wear one. If you are having sex with a stranger, you should still be wearing condoms. They have made non-latex condoms for a very long time. So my impression of people that do that is they're not the kind of person that I would advocate having sex with. Because it is not a free game. Oh, wait. Maybe I understood that. Maybe I misunderstood that. Who avoid using condoms because you say you are allergic to latex and they think it's free game. Okay. In that case, you, as the person with a latex allergy, get yourself some of these on Amazon. Keep them in wherever makes sense for you to be negotiating sex, in your purse, in your house, everywhere. Keep them everywhere. Put them in your office. I don't give a shit. Put them everywhere. And then be like, actually, I happen to have non-latex condoms, so that's not a problem. yes, they'll be like, oh, I thought I was going to get to do bareback. Now we have to wear a condom? I'm so sad. You have to be a responsible adult to have sex. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. Take care of your partner's sexual well-being. Wrap it up. That's my advice. Yeah, if you're using, well, I don't know about other places. In the US, there is only one type of female insertable condom, and it is made from latex, and I believe it is prescription only. Like, you can only get it at a doctor's office or like Planned Parenthood, to my knowledge. And from what I know sex workers that use them, and they're like, yeah, it feels like having a trash bag inside your vagina. So I would not necessarily go with those. Also, you can only use those for vaginal. Like, if you use them for anal, they're going to get sucked up your butt. So I wouldn't. Condoms like this, because you can use, like, condoms work for oral, they work on toys, they work for anal, they work for vaginal. These are really, really multi-purpose. You can cut these and turn them into a dental dam as well. So they're very, very multi-purpose. But female condoms, if you can get them, if you're not allergic to latex, can also be an option. But if you are allergic to latex, at least in the US, that I know of where I live, the only option is a latex-based female condom. They do usually. They will have female condoms at university sex resource centers or at university health offices. They will have them. But, like, if you're an adult in a general population, usually you can't walk into a Lover's and, like, just get a female condom. They specifically stock them at universities because universities have access to them as, like, sort of providing a medical service. Like, it's usually through whatever, like, student health centers at the university, at least, when I was still in school. What's a dental dam? A dental dam is a sheet of usually latex that is used for either ribbing or for oral sex, where you are doing things on external genitalia, typically a vagina, but also other condoms or other kinds of, see, now my brain's not working, other kinds of genitalia combinations. Is the female condom. I heard recently that it was prescription only, but maybe it's not. Prescription only. Okay, here's what it is. This is from Planned Parenthood, so I'm pretty sure they got their information updated. The only brand of internal condom that's FDA approved and available in the US is the FC2 female condom. It's available online at the website, at many Planned Parenthood health centers, family planning health clinics, and by prescription in drugstores. That is what Planned Parenthood says. If you can find them other places, that's great. That is, you don't need a prescription to get it, but typically the way that you get it, if you don't have access to a Planned Parenthood or a health center where you can usually pick them up for free, is by getting a prescription at the drugstore. In the same way that you have to get a prescription for other, female forms of birth control, like, the pill, the ring, the patch, etc. What are you doing, funny girl? Hello. Female condoms are on Amazon? Y'all got me on this fucking adventure right now. Female condoms for sex is the autofill, which is hilarious. Is it though? What I'm seeing is that they are on Amazon. But it's also $90 for a pack of one, and it's sold by a random seller, which does not indicate to me that is a legitimate avenue for purchasing. Legitimate avenue for purchasing internal condoms. One of them is literally just buy a poster print. Yeah, that I'm gonna say I am dubious, although I think, yeah, I just have it under all. Interesting. Yeah, it doesn't, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place. If you just type in female condoms, it looks like the only way to buy it is through some secondary Amazon sellers that I don't think are actually allowed to be selling female condoms. I'm not saying it's only by prescription, but it's seems like it's maybe not. Hi, Brittany. Hello. I'm going to call you tomorrow, by the way. FYI. Be prepared for it. Yeah, it sounds like somebody grabbed something from a health center and tried to scalp it. That's what it seems like. All right. We are 10 past. I would like to reheat a tortilla and then make myself a soft taco. That is what my plan is. Mommy Rainbow Scales would be an amazing name. Okay. That one's for free. Anybody can have that one. Anybody can have that one. Okay. Oh my God. Please tell me they aren't used. No, that would be the worst. Okay. I gotta go, guys. This was amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Great chat, great conversations, great questions. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you like the live stream, give it a thumbs up. We stream every Friday, 6 p.m. That would be 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Don't know what that is in Europe, but if you're here and you know what it is. And yeah, I will see you all again very soon. Bye.